Not all is peaceful in the Perry County mountains once again. Even though the courts were back in session and many of the feudists had been in jail and were now released, there were still fights and ambushes going on, but for the most part there was an uneasy peace among the people in the mountains of Perry County. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We need to fire up the time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine, but it convinces YouTube that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Who was Judge Josiah Combs? Josiah Henry Combs was born on November 25, 1832, at Hazard, in Perry County, Kentucky, to Jesse and Mary Polly Bowling Combs. Jesse was a former clerk of Perry County and was the grandson of Elijah Combs, the founder of Hazard and Perry County. Josiah would marry Elizabeth Polly Ann Mattingly on July 9, 1853, in Hazard, Kentucky. Their children were William Jesse Combs, 1853 to 1938, Nancy Combs, Susan Combs, 1857 to 1947. Susan would marry Joseph C. Eversole. Sarah Combs, 1857 to 1919. Sarah would marry Elijah Morgan, who was a French supporter. Martha Combs, 1859 to 1886. Martha would marry Jess Davison, the second leader of the Eversole faction, and Mary Ellen Combs, 1860 to 1900. Torn between family and duty. The Combs family was mainly on the side of the Eversoles in the French Eversole Feud, with the exception of Sarah and Elijah Morgan. This conflict in his family would show up in the courtroom. The conflict came on February 15, 1887, when Judge Combs' son-in-law, Joseph C. Eversole, would get into a fight with William Bill Gambrill, who would be shot and killed by Eversole. On the grounds of self-defense, Combs refused to press the charges of murder against his son-in-law. With this action, Combs became a participant in the feud, and for safety reasons he had to leave Perry County with his family. Return to Perry County. After 4 years of uneasy peace, Judge Combs and his family returned to Perry County. This was done over the objection of his close friends. However, Combs wanted to spend his remaining years in Hazard in peace and quiet. Every mountain person, no matter how far away they may roam, has a piece of the Appalachians forever in their hearts, and they are not satisfied anywhere on the planet until they set their feet upon that ground once again. It is said that the Appalachian Mountains always call her children home to her, no matter how far or where they travel to on the earth. Such was the case for Judge Combs. Because Hazard was home to him, he would not hear of not returning to the very spot he loved so very much. Narrow escape. Before returning to Perry County on a permanent basis, Judge Combs would come into the area to visit his friends and loved ones. Because of his participation in the feud, he was a marked man by the French faction. On one such visit to the area, there was an assassination attempt upon his life. According to the newspaper account, there were 2 such attempts made. He was able to escape without harm, but it should have stood as a warning to Judge Combs that he was a marked person for death if he had tried to stay in the area. Undaunted or unwilling to bend to the threat against his life, Judge Combs decided to move to the area regardless. It is curious that Judge Combs was with Joseph C. Eversole and Nick Combs when they were shot dead in an ambush while traveling to Hyman, Kentucky for court. The lucky circumstance as to why Judge Combs was not also shot had to be because he was ahead of the pair with Tom Hollyfield, an officer of the law, and his prisoner, Mary Jones. Finding out that Judge Combs was once again in the area, the French faction decided to even the score with Judge Combs as he refused to prosecute Joseph C. Eversole. even though Eversole was now dead and Combs was no longer participating in the feud anymore. Death of Judge Josiah Combs. The following is a retelling of the death of Judge Josiah Henry Combs, as told in the book Kentucky's Famous Feuds and Tragedies. Judge Combs had moved back to Perry County and had a farm. On September 23, 1894, he was growing corn that was about as thick and tall as the rest of the weeds and underbrush that surrounded his land. This gave perfect cover to those who wished to ambush anyone, and it gave them ample opportunity to get within just a few feet of their potential quarry without fear of being discovered. About 7 a.m. that morning, a group of friends and neighbors were having a conversation with Judge Combs. It is unclear if he was on the road or out in his yard when the shots rang out. What is clear is that after the shots rang out, that he reeled from the deadly shot, straightened himself back up, walked across the road to his home, and fell to the ground at his threshold and died on that very spot. It is thought that the person who fired the shot followed the judge with the sight of his gun pointed at the man as he made his way to his home in case the shot proved not to be fatal. Upon seeing the death of the judge, the assassin made his way to the end of the lot where he was met by another Confederate. There was a third person who also began firing shots from across the river. It is thought that the purpose for this was to make everyone think that there was a large party involved so that the posse would not pursue them any further. The three men made their way purposefully and calmly down the river with no fear shown that they would be followed. The manner in which they conducted themselves confused the town people. After the assassins had a huge start, was a posse formed to give pursuit. Once the posse caught up to the outlaws, a running gun battle began, and one of the Confederates was shot and wounded. A member of the posse was also wounded in the gun battle. However, the outlaws slipped into the thick wooded area of the mountains and vanished, so the pursuit had to end. Judge Josiah Combs' death in the newspapers. According to the Daily Public Ledger from Maysville, Kentucky, on September 27, 1894, French Eversole Feud. Another victim in the person of Judge J.C. Combs, who was assassinated, Pineville, Kentucky, September 27th. The famous French Eversole Feud has been revived. Letters received here Wednesday morning announced that Judge J.H. Combs, father-in-law of J.C. Eversole, was shot down and killed at his home at Hazard, Perry County, on last Sunday morning at 7 o'clock. The assassin was hiding in a patch of corn across the village road from the judge's house. Judge Combs was in his yard talking to friends when the shot was fired. The bullet struck him in the heart. Judge Combs was 65 years old. He had been generally liked. 2 attempts were made to assassinate Judge Combs last year, but they were unsuccessful. It is probable that this murder will start the feud afresh. Perry County is remote from railroad and telegraph lines. The French Eversole Feud from the first to the last has cost over 30 lives. According to the San Antonio Daily Light from San Antonio, Texas, on October 17, 1894. Wednesday, October 17, 1894. We broke out fresh the French Eversole Feud again. Rifle cracked. Judge Combs bites the dust. Some of the FFVs of Virginia proceeding to kill each other off. Big Stone Gap, Virginia, October 17th. The French Eversole Feud has started afresh in Perry County. Bob May, ex-member of the Kentucky legislature and one of the principals of the Eversole side, is here from Hazard, the seat of the county war. Judge Josiah Combs, father-in-law of the dead Eversole leader, is dead. The leader of the French faction, whose name was Frazier Fulton French, and 2 others of his faction have been arrested for his murder, and more arrests will follow. Judge Combs was 50 years old and lived at Hazard. Early on Sunday morning 2 weeks ago, he stepped across the street where a young Cash Eversole and 2 others were talking. A rifle cracked from the cornfield just over the fence, and a bullet struck the old man in the breast, and he fell. Cash Eversole wheeled and saw the man with the blackened face spring up and dash through the cornfield. He says the man was Joe Atkins. At the same time, others of the French gang began firing and shouting from the other direction to divert attention from Atkins. Young Cash with several others ran across the little spur and hid themselves in a ravine. 3 men with blackened faces soon appeared, who, the Eversole said, were Atkins, Frazier, and Jesse Fields. As they climbed over the bank, Will Martin, a boy in the Eversole crowd, fired and killed Frazier. The other 2 escaped, but were captured later. Atkins is said to have escaped, but French and Fields were held. They are trying to get the county judge to come to Breathitt County line, and they were afraid to go to Hazard. Only last night they received an anonymous letter saying that they would be shot the moment they put a foot across the county line. Judge Combs died in a few hours. He had never taken part in the feud, though he was a man of wealth and in sympathy with the Eversoles, and he always tried to get the French to trial. It was his influence that was feared. Atkins was a noted desperado. More than 30 men have been killed in the feud in the last half-dozen years. The 3 Confederates charged with murder. The 3 accused men of the assassination of Judge Josiah Combs were Joe Atkins, Jesse Fields, and Boone Frazier. It is believed that Joe Atkins is the man who fired the fatal shot from the cornfield. They were found and indicted, with Atkins and Fields being arrested and sent to another county to face trial. Frazier was never caught. In our next week's video, we will begin with the trials of Joe Atkins, Jesse Fields, French, and Tom Smith, as the most trusted lieutenants of the feud would turn against their leader. This trial would become infamous in the annals of history in eastern Kentucky, as several famous lawyers would take up both sides of the case. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Feuds. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries of Appalachian history.